So the statement from his office, or his spokesman tonight, says he knows nothing about the terrible crimes that Epstein pleaded guilty to in Florida some years ago, or those which he's recently been charged with in New York. He goes on to talk about he took a total of 4 trips with him. He had Secret Service, he had detail, he once had a meeting with him in his office, he had security and staff members with him, hasn't spoken to him in more than a decade. Are you saying the former president's not telling the truth?
Yes, I'm saying, sadly, that he is not telling the truth. First of all, Gerald Lefcourt, who was one of Epstein's attorneys back during the original arrest and the original investigation, wrote a letter, it has been made public. And in that letter, Gerald Lefcourt claims that Epstein was one of the original funders of Clinton Global Initiative. He gave Jeffrey Epstein gave President Clinton $4 million, according to a source who knows the story about that.
Okay. Well, the former president tonight saying he knows nothing about the crimes. They traveled together briefly. I know you've been digging on this for 10 years, so we'll continue to try to put the pieces together. That's his statement tonight. Yes. Well, investigative journalist Cochita Sarnoff joins us now. She's been covering this case since the beginning. She's also author of the book Trafficking and the executive director at Alliance to Rescue Victims of Trafficking. Conchita, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shannon, for having me.
You raised an interesting point in your research that it's the then state's attorney for Palm Beach County is the one that doesn't get as much attention, but he was a critical player here, so much concerning to the then chief of police there in Palm Beach County that he actually put together this response and sent it. He referred it to the FBI saying, we need the feds to get involved because somehow there's so much pressure on this county state's attorney that we don't think this is going anywhere.
Absolutely, Shannon. You know, this is my biggest question, and I don't understand why no one is pointing fingers at and actually explaining why Barry Kersher cut the deal that he cut. The onus fell on the state attorney's office. As you know, after the chief of police, Michael Ritter, whom I spoke to at length for many, many years since I started the investigation back in 2009, Ritter said to me many times, I did not accept Kersher's deal. He wanted to charge him with a misdemeanor, no jail time, no restitution, and no registration as a sex offender. Then he took the case, Ritter takes the case to the feds.
The police chief.
Yes, Michael Ritter, the Palm Beach police chief, takes the case to the feds. That's when Acosta comes in. That's not until 2006. And so Acosta and his team, with Villafana and others, they start to investigate. That takes 2 years. There's a 53-page indictment against Epstein. But what happens? Well, we're getting close to the 2008 presidential campaign. Hillary Clinton is the Democratic shoo-in at the time. President Obama was still not at the forefront. And so I believe, given the information that I have and what I've read, that at the very top of the food chain, they did not want to make, as the Attorney General said to me when I interviewed him, Alberto Gonzalez, they did not want to make a political mess. So they basically tapped Acosta again, which is also why they hired Ken Starr and Jay Lefkowitz, who were the two.
Lots of high-profile names involved in this thing.
Absolutely. They were the two attorneys who negotiated the plea deal, meaning the non-prosecution agreement that was handed to Epstein, which, by the way, was not in order, as Acosta told me, because I have been speaking to Acosta for many years since the original investigation and the original arrest in 2005.
Well, let me ask you this, because tonight President Clinton has spoken out and said, I want to make it clear that there was some travel with him, there was always Secret Service, we had brief meetings, you know, people who are trying to tie the two of them together, just like there were people tonight trying to tie Epstein to President Trump, that those are unfair leaps in logic, the Clintons say?
I have read too much information, and I have spoken to too many people on the inside. I actually attempted to interview Clinton, but he did not agree to do so. And I know from the pilot logs, and these are pilot logs that, you know, were written by different pilots and at different times, that Clinton he was a guest of Epstein's 27 times. Now, you tell me, Doug Bands was also on the plane many times. Many of those times, Clinton had his Secret Service with him, and many times he did not. almost every time that Clinton's name is on the pilot logs, there are underage girls. There are initials, and there are names of many, many girls on that private plane. So you have to ask yourself, and this is what I asked myself, why would anyone, not only a former president, fly on a plane 27 times that did not belong to him?
Okay.